bus or a train or hitchhike to somewhere so he can get a boat to go to America. Believe me, nobody is going to pick him up. So let's say he's lucky enough to find a boat that would take him here. Okay, so he's here in New York City, but he really doesn't know how the subways work. So he asks people. They just run away. Finally, let's say he figures out it's not the IRT, it's the BMT, and he gets to Brooklyn. Then he's got to figure out how to get to 365 South 3rd Street. Okay, it's going to be a long walk, so let's say he finally gets to Williamsburg and he finally finds our tenement. But remember, all the windows at 365 are going to be wide open. And he's had a long journey, so he must be very hungry. So if he has to kill and eat somebody, he probably would go through the first floor window and eat all the Rothsteins who are living in apartment 1A. And once he's full, there's no reason for him to go all the way up to the 5th floor and eat you. The story made good sense to me. Okay, I said, open the window. I'll take a chance. And that's how my patient, loving mother solved only one of the many problems I would hand her each day. Since we're talking about me, let me go back to the very beginning. I was born on June 28th, 1926. As far as I was concerned, a very good time to be born. Maybe not so good a date for the Archduke Ferdinand of Austria, as it was the 12th anniversary of his assassination, which kicked off World War I. But in America, things were good. We were still at peace, and the Great Depression wouldn't start until 1929. I was born in the Williamsburg section of Brooklyn, New York. That's where the Williamsburg Bridge makes its way over to Manhattan. I was the last child born to Kate Kaminsky, whose maiden name was Katie Brookman. A little later on in life, I was 14 and learning to be a drummer. It occurred to me that if I was going to be in show business, Mel Brookman was a much better stage name than Melvin Kaminsky, which would be a very good name for a professor of Russian literature. So, with my new stage name decided on, I began painting it on my bass drum. But when I got to BROOK, there was no room left for MAN. I only had room for one letter, so I threw in an S at the end of Brook, hence Mel Brooks, which has stood me in good stead ever since. But let's get back to Melvin Kaminsky. Rumor has it that my mother said she already had 3 boys, and the only reason she tried again was in the hopes that this last child would be a girl. The story goes that when the doctor delivered me and said to my mother, "You'll have a big, beautiful, bouncing baby boy," my mother replied, "Do you want him?" But I'm sure she was kidding. At least I hope so. Being the baby of the family was good stuff. Everything went my way. I had 3 older brothers. Bernie, who was 4 years older, Lenny, who was 7 years older, and Irving, who was 10 years older. I remember Bernie telling me one night that Daddy had come home with a little yellow rubber duck in his hand. Bernie was sure the duck was for him, but Daddy went right past his eager face and, of course, gave it to the baby, me. Bernie never forgave me for that. But my brothers were wonderful. We were like puppies in a cardboard box. We enjoyed one another's company tremendously. Plenty of fights, but plenty of fun. My uncles and aunts also adored me as I was the youngest. I was always in the air, hurled up and kissed and thrown in the air again. Until I was 5, I don't remember my feet touching the ground. When I was only 2 years old, my father died. Max, like so many others at that time, was swept away by tuberculosis. It wasn't very traumatic to me at that age. I was only 2, but it was to my older brothers. I was probably 6 years old when I realized that other kids had fathers and I didn't. It was a brushstroke of depression that really never left me, not having a father. Another great wellspring source